Welcome, everybody, to Crossing the Line with TV's Greg Heym. So excited to be here today. We got our buddy Scott Nadler and Shar Sedgh back. I said it.
Wow.
I didn't call you Sarge yet. Well, I will later.
Good job.
That's, for those of you playing at home, now take your bets on when Greg refers to Shar as Sarge.
The most exciting part of the podcast for me. It's
I hope you gentlemen had a nice holiday.
beautiful holiday.
You got another holiday coming up.
We do.
It's nice when they're close like that, huh?
Yes, yes.
Well, that's great. And, you know, it's a good weekend.
We didn't get clapping. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you may notice, by the way, Ray is not with us today. He's taking a well-deserved vacation.
How would they notice?
I don't get vacation.
How
They
would
didn't
anyone
hear the
notice
clapping.
except for
They
us?
didn't hear the clap. You know, he's got the clap
didn't.
like that.
Okay.
But Lena is our everything today. So that's the Don't Mess with Lena edition of Crossing the Line with Greg Heym. Because she's got stuff ready to throw at us if we get out of line. And she's like,
It's a brand new operation here.
If you can't hear us and you only see the lips moving, you know why.
You know, she may just do random edits, or we'll see what we can get away with on this show, things we're not supposed to say. We'll see. We'll keep score at home, see how it goes. But it was actually a peaceful weekend because the Jets didn't play on Sunday. They're going to lose tonight instead of Sunday. It's a different day to lose on, so that's...
How about those Giants, though, right?
Wow.
Oh, tough injury for you guys, but you may have a new quarterback, it looks like. Doing what it takes to win.
Got some moxie, that kid.
He looks like a good young arm.
Yeah.
Yeah, send him over to the Jets. We could find a way to screw up anybody. I mean, you think we're
good.
It's fun
We'll
to
keep
see
him.
what Sam Darnold and Geno Smith have done with other teams, making Pro Bowls and all that stuff. And, you know, we have nothing. But that's okay.
Well, we're good at taking old quarterbacks. Maybe we can get Russell Wilson to come over to this side of the...
He's not old enough yet. Okay. Come back when you're 40, Russell. We'll get you, and you're washed, and then we'll get you then. But a big shout out to the Yankees. Didn't win the division, but you know what? 9-1 your last 10 games. You look good. Plus, what's better than a Yankees-Red Sox series? The greatest rivalry in the history of sports. And my plug for Aaron Judge MVP. He is the only player in the history of baseball. Babe Ruth has not done this. Lou Gehrig, Mickey Mantle, Ted Williams. He is the first player in Major League Baseball history to hit 50 home runs and lead Major League Baseball in batting average.
313, 315, something like
330.
that. 330, sorry.
I think it was 330. Yeah,
Okay.
We're too lazy to have fact checks
And to
over
think
here.
in the middle of the summer, he was injured and they thought about shutting him down for the season, and that totally would have killed him.
And he showed it initially, but he came back strong.
Yeah.
And here's a little trivia question. So he led all of Major League Baseball in batting average, but there's been two other players that have hit 50 home runs and led their league in batting average, in the American League in batting average. One of them is a Yankee, and the other one is a legend who most people have never heard of for some reason. Anyone want to guess? No, that's
Maris?
okay. No, Maris was not a high average hitter. No, one was a Yankee, Mickey Mantle. He won the Triple Crown. Remember that? And the other one is Jimmy Fox. If you've ever seen League of Their Own, Jimmy Dugan is based on Jimmy Fox. Although in real life, Jimmy Fox died in his 50s.
I thought you said Jamie Foxx. I was like, wow, he was also...
No, Jamie Foxx does everything.
That guy literally does everything. God.
I have a great baseball trivia, which we'll save for a little bit later.
All right, well,
what a tease.
We'll think about what that question might be while you watch some of these important messages. And again, coming to you, as always, from the Shar Sedgh Studios here at Studio 1870.
Wow.
Sedgh Studio.
What do you really need to know about buying or selling a home? First, it's serious business. And it's complicated. There's a lot of money on the table, and emotion too. You need an agent who knows the ropes. So, whether you're buying or selling your home, work with professionals who have a mastery of the craft.
Sedgh & Zuckerman is a boutique residential law firm guiding you and your clients every step of the way with a solution-oriented approach. Make sure to work with a deal maker and not a deal breaker. Contact us today at sznylaw.com.
This beautiful set here at Studio 1873 is brought to you by the Everset. The Everset provides full-service staging and furniture rental solutions in the New York area. For more information, please visit us at staging.theeverset.com or email us at staging@theeverset.com to request a free proposal.
And we're back. We haven't scared Lena away yet, but you're doing a wonderful job, Lena. We appreciate this. Next week you host. It's a natural progression. That's it. And we get behind the camera and we get to drink coffee while you sit under the lights and sweat. All right. So the big news last week when you guys were celebrating was the PCE data came out. It's actually, the name of the report is the Personal Income and Outlays Report. And you go, Greg, where's PCE in there? It's not in the headline, but it's personal income and then outlays. Outlays are also known as personal consumption expenditures. And then to that is the index, the Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index, which the core version is the Fed's preferred measure of inflation. Everybody still with us? Because I don't know if I'm still with us, and I just said that stuff. So the core PCE index was 2.9% higher than a year ago. It's like, well, Greg, that's not 2%. We don't care about that anymore. We've moved way past that. It's good news for two reasons. One, unchanged from the prior month. That's good. And match the market's expectations. If you do those two things when you go to inflation data, you're okay.
Hang on, 2.9% higher?
Year over year, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So
Right.
we were a little worried. Remember, August CPI came in a little hot. People were worried. And then I got over that quickly. You worry, is it moving in the wrong direction? Are tariffs causing inflation, to escalate a little bit? And, it's funny because we keep pointing this out and people keep yelling at me. Like, see, prices are still going up. It's tariffs.
You're just walking in the street, people yelling at you?
Something like that. It's like, hey, aren't you the guy from crossing the line? I go, no, I hate that guy. So they separate the price increases by goods and services. And we talked about this last month. So in July, the price index for goods actually declined 0.1%. In August, it went up 0.1%. Does that sound like runaway inflation? No. What this tells us is what we already knew, that inflation is still mostly in services. And you think about things like housing and stuff like that. So this is good. It's like, okay, the Fed should be on track to cut in October and December. But there's also other good data in here and people may have skipped over. Real consumer spending. Real always means adjusted for inflation. We talk about retail sales is not adjusted for inflation. So we like this better. Up by 0.4% in August, double the forecast. And that's the second consecutive month where the monthly increase was above expectations and at 0.4%. And since consumer spending is 70% of GDP, that bodes well for third quarter growth, which the latest GDP now figure, because GDP later wouldn't be useful, right? It's got to be GDP now. 3.9% for third quarter growth.
Wow.
Like, what? Me worry? Alfred Newman's jumping up and down. I told you. And remember, second quarter GDP, the final number came in at 3.8, revised up by 0.5% from its initial forecast. And personal income, also good news. Remember, that was the beginning of the title of the report is personal income and outlays. Also rose 0.4%, higher than expected. Disposable income, that's your money after the government takes their share, up almost 5% year over year. So that was all good news. And stocks rose on Friday, but had an off week. So Scott Nadler, loan daddy himself.
Yes.
We're two hats now. Take bets on how many he'll have next week.
If Lena's wearing two hats, he can wear two hats too.
Well, I said, as I joked before we went on air, why don't the bald guys have hats?
I would love for you guys to wear these hats.
Yeah, you're not giving them up though. You're just like, look, I have Loan Daddy hats. I let you use a
I want
mug.
this whole table to be filled with Loan Daddy hats. One day.
Until someone says
Until Matt walks in and hey, we got to get these hats off this table.
Too many Loan Daddy hats. Because then Shar's going to want Shar hats, whatever's on there.
It's in my contract. 10 hats, no more. So we're starting with 2.
So I actually have a question about this. Why are these measured so intently against expectations rather than actual numbers?
I think because markets price in things like the Fed rate cut in the September meeting, everybody knew it was going to happen. So it's priced in the market. So if they do as expected, okay, we're good. We're a little happy about it.
So you've already reacted to the news that hasn't come out.
And you've planned for the eventuality that they're going to cut rates, and you made decisions. And the market usually still sees a bump when they get happy news because that's like the last quarter of that thing is like, all right.
Let's just see if it really happens.
But if people expect a bad thing to happen, they're ready. Like when I sit down to watch a Jet game tonight, I expect pathetic a performance by the Jets. So I'm not necessarily disappointed when it happens. And I think that's it. Markets, have already made their move. They're already expecting something to happen. It's always when something's better or worse than expected that you see markets really get crazy.
Now, is that a tangible number? Has somebody determined that, or is that just the general feel for the market was that this?
Well, no, there are different forecasts. There's blue chip forecasts, Dow Jones. They'll survey economy. Like people will always come up with their own forecast based on, whatever metrics that they look at.
Okay.
It's funny that Wall Street Journal ranks economists on a yearly basis. It's like who gets the most accurate. Mm-hmm. It wasn't me. I don't make forecasts. I don't like to be wrong that often. I'll stick to saying the Jets are going to be terrible. That's as far on a limb as I'm going to go.
Most of these companies also will have their own internal people that are forecasting, and then companies are making their own forecasts and ultimately deciding what they want to do moving forward based on the analysis that they're doing. So these forecasts are important, and most of the private sector is doing a better job than what the government is doing. And the mortgage market itself is more forward-looking. Right. So you saw interest rates start to drop well in advance of what the Fed was doing. So they were ahead of the Fed and the government.
Right.
But going back to PCE for a second, I was thinking about this as you were talking. That beautiful monologue, by the way.
Why are you thinking on it? You should be listening.
I was listening. I was multitasking.
Okay. That's why there's 2 hats. One is listening.
Exactly.
2 thinking hats.
You're starting to get it. We've all worked with different people before, right? And you're always hiring different people for your staff and different lawyers. And there's some people that we work with where they're like, man, they're like 1 or 2 pieces away from becoming great. Maybe it's a real estate agent who we work with, where a sales manager can look at that person and say, they speak well, they're professional. If they just learn if they understand the market, if they understand the luxury market, the co-op market a little bit more, they're going to explode. So bringing this back to PCE.
Okay, I was wondering how we're going to get back to that.
When I look at PCE, it's the weave. When I look at the PCE, there's portfolio management, which we spoke about, which can account for about 3/10 of this number, that 2.9%.
Well, maybe, because remember, CPI...
According to the Fed.
Well, look, the reason we like PCE so much, and the Fed likes it, is it's more complete data.
Yep.
And it's based on actual spending.
Right.
Not, Scott Nadler, how much you spend on portfolio management. So, yes, and that's what the services aspect of this, driving this number.
Right. So, portfolio management, shelter, which is typically lagging. That's also about 3/10, and then tariffs. That could be another 3/10 right there. That's 2%. If you get rid of those 3, so to look at it like how close we are to getting to that 2% measure with just those 3 components, tariffs being transitory, shelter always lagging. Portfolio management is one of those things that shouldn't be factored into PCE at all. So when we look at the Fed, what the Fed's doing, how they're really focused on employment now, when this comes out, it came in line with expectations. Now the conversation is around, all right, well, what if the employment number does come in higher than expectations or comes in line with expectations, what is the Fed going to do? Now there's more talk of this is a really important number that comes out on Friday, if it comes out, because I know there's a government shutdown potentially where this number may not even come out. We'll see what that means.
Right.
But this report coming out on Friday is now really important because it's sort of built in at this point that the Fed will lower rates 2 more times.
Oh, it's built in, yeah. And one more time next year, according to their dot plot. But markets are sure about
if we get a runaway jobs number,
then I think that they can cover themselves by saying it's one number.
Right.
Let's see the revision when it comes out. Because again, you ask anybody right now, what are they more concerned about, inflation or their jobs? I think they're going to say their jobs.
I would think so too. But I'm curious if you think, is the Fed looking at this? Are they so set on that 2% number, where it being at 2.9% now, to say, hey, inflation is still an issue that we need to make sure we're fighting?
Well, it's a dynamic target now. They changed that rule. They don't have to have the hard landing on it. It's funny because people are like, well, we had a soft landing. And we said, no, technically we haven't, because we haven't gotten inflation down to where we want it. I think, just like with the jobs numbers, you see massive revisions. It'd be interesting to see how this data gets adjusted over time as well. But I think they have that dual mandate, and it's clear, and they've come out and said that we have to spend a little more time. It's like having 2 kids and not spending enough time with one of them. It's like, okay, so I got to focus on this one.
My point with this is I'm reading articles where people are concerned about inflation. They're saying the Fed's taking their eye off the ball. And I'm looking at this like that agent with a lot of potential to say, hey, they're really close to exploding and becoming a superstar, as opposed to some people that we've all worked with before.
You're not talking about me, are you? Am I a step away from superstar?
We're going to keep it going.
Okay.
No, you are a star amongst stars, the star of stars. Then there are some people who they've reached their potential. We look at if there's like a 5'6" point guard, Is it possible you become a superstar, an all-star? Absolutely. Are the odds stacked against you? Yes. At the same time, yes. There aren't that many 5'6" people in the NBA. So
how tall is Muggsy Bogues?
He was 5'3". I mean, he was an anomaly.
Spud Webb was 5'9".
But he had vertical.
I think he was 5'9" on a chair. I think he was even smaller. So I think when I read these articles saying that inflation is still an issue, I think we're really close to getting to that target.
It's hard because 2% is drilled in our brains. But I think the concern with tariffs potentially taking that number over 3%, that's a concern. And with a softening labor market, how are people going to be able to afford stuff? But wages are still growing faster than prices. So you look at it and you say, all right, yeah, I think we really have to support the labor market, and you want to get ahead of the curve there, because these cuts that they do don't lead to hiring like that. It's going to take 6 months to a year to matter. And we had a whole % of rate cuts last year, and it didn't seem to do much to help anything, right? Because the job numbers were already tanking then. We just didn't know it yet. So I think and you would think that I would never say this, but I think they're doing the right thing, delivering some cuts now, because I mean, it's so scary how bad the labor. That'd be like a doctor saying, "Oh, Scott, you got a clean bill of health," and you go to another doctor's like, "You got a million things wrong with you." Like, and then
okay, so if the report comes out on Friday
and it's blow away,
yeah. Do you think the market reaction is let's wait and see what the actual number is next month, or are we taking this at face value and saying, wow, maybe the Fed was off target, or maybe we're wrong about the labor market, maybe it was an anomaly in July,
or maybe these revisions they keep doing are bad revisions? I mean, 1 month can't change this trend that we've seen where over 900,000 jobs have disappeared. Job growth has basically been averaging about 50,000 a month, instead of what we thought. We had a negative month in June. So I don't think it can revert. I mean, if it was over 200,000, but that would
It is
be
amazing, though. So last year at this time, the Fed lowered rates, and then mortgage rates started to go up because the jobs numbers that came out were blow-away numbers. Yeah. And then we found out months later that they were not correct at all. So it's like that Mark Twain quote, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often does rhyme. We're kind of in that same space again where, if that number comes in higher and then 3 months later, we're going to see an impact in our space. We've already seen since the Fed lowered rates on September 18th, mortgage rates have gone up like 0.25%. It happened kind of immediately. So it's going to be really fascinating to see what happens here. But it's convenient.
Well, look, and mortgage rates have been falling. Maybe they overshot it a little bit, and there's your adjustment, to go back to what you said earlier. Right. Look, everybody's expecting a mediocre number on Friday if it does come out. And it's interesting. I know I've said this before, probably, but it was a government shutdown that got me into real estate 30 years ago. It was 1995. I was a baby economist at BLS. And the government was slated to shut down. And that never happened in those days. Am I getting laid off? Like, what does that mean? Now we kind of know what it means. We know that there's usually back pay involved. But now this is a case where some workers could lose their jobs. Yeah. And that's a shame that we can't fund the government. It's a shame that now this is like so routine. I don't think people worry about it as much. Mm-hmm. But I have to be thankful for that. I was in a rush to get out, and then a friend who I used to work with at BLS called me about a job at Rebney, and that's what made me. Scott wasn't born yet when this happened, but
I was born.
It was the 90s.
I remember
yada, yada. You started a podcast.
Yes, and basically what we have now in terms of labor market, everybody's calling it low hire, low fire, right? Because we see job growth is terrible, but Sarge, see, I did that on purpose.
That was on purpose.
Now, we look at layoff numbers. Weekly jobless claims are very low. What are you seeing in your industry in terms of that? Like, because you don't necessarily want to let people go, but the hiring, that stopped, right?
So in our specific industry, hiring has not slowed down. Everybody's looking for talent. Part of it is because everybody's putting in more work for less business right now. So that may not be indicative of where the market may be. It might just be specific to our industry. But I think everybody's, the average person isn't really looking at the details of these numbers. They're sort of feeling what the general impression is. And when you see the Fed lowered rates, the market generally is doing better, even though last week it may have been a little bit down. And then you see these reports here who are generally giving you the impression that these next 2 rate cuts are still going to happen. You just don't want anybody to rock the boat. And then just that impression, the psychological effect, is really impressing on buyers who are coming back in and saying, okay, let's see where we are now. We sort of have been on the sidelines. Let's regroup and see where we are. And with this new atmosphere, we are seeing a lot more activity, which ends up, having smaller law firms and bigger law firms to hire more to handle the
I'd save a job for my son in case he does go to law school.
Can I tell you, side note, I've had a few transactions more recently where it's so adversarial between buyer's agent, seller's agent, buyer attorney, and seller's attorney. And I'm thinking to myself, this buyer's attorney one day is going to be on the seller's side. This seller's attorney is going to be on the buyer's side. And I like working with you and your team because you're trying to, it's not like there's a kumbaya, but there's an aspect of, I get where you guys are. Let's figure out together how we can make this work, how we can appease the buyer and the seller. Someone's going to be unhappy. Maybe they'll both be unhappy a little bit, but let's find a way to make this work. But lately, it's like agents don't want to, these couple I'm not saying this happens all the time, right, but a couple transactions where attorneys and brokers are just not talking to each other. And it's like, it doesn't make sense to me. Right. It's like, find a way to get this done.
So I always say this, even though we have different sides of the transaction, everybody has the same goal to close on the sale of the home. The seller wants their money and move on in their life. The buyer wants to start their new life in the new place. And when you start picking at these small little problems that come up, and those can impact the big transaction, the big goal, it's really small-minded perspective. But on the flip side, when you have brokers who are starting to butt heads, I had a broker, this was right after COVID, who said, we had a deal about to sign a contract and it was about to fall apart. And she said, Shar, this is my livelihood. Mm-hmm. I know you do volume, but a broker doesn't do that many. So one deal goes into contract and doesn't close can make or break a person's month, quarter, or
100%.
Year. So, when volume is low, people get a little bit more tense up and you end up becoming a little bit more emotional. But as an attorney, I'm able to put the emotions aside and just see if we have $1 million transaction and a $2,000 problem, there's a way to figure it out.
On the attorney side, I find that when it isn't a real estate attorney, they're like, pushing for some kind of settlement, some kind of deal. They want to get something over the buyer or the seller, whatever side that they're on, and they're not really focusing on closing the transaction itself. They're trying to they're threatening going to court. It's like, why?
So sometimes I tell my clients, sometimes even though you're right, sometimes you have to give the side a small win just to make them feel like they did well.
Right.
I mean, when you have those attorneys, they need to go back to their client and say, hey, at least I got you this, instead of saying, sorry, I totally botched this.
Yeah.
There's too much at stake. I remember watching a documentary about George Martin's recording studio in Montserrat, which wound up being destroyed by a volcano and a monsoon or a hurricane. But the police were doing the Synchronicity album, and they couldn't get along. So Andy Summers says, George Martin's on this island. We got the greatest producer of all time. Why don't we have him produce the album? And Sting and Stewart call him, go talk to him. So he goes up there. George Martin makes him tea. And basically Andy Summers is making the pitch. And George Martin goes, no, I'm not going to do that. He goes, you guys can figure it out. There's too much at stake. Just go back to the table and make it work.
Yeah.
And they produce this great album, and then they break up. Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of break up, we got to take a break, and then we're going to dig in a little further into the housing market, so stay with us.
Your dream home is closer than you think. I'm Scott Nadler, VP of Mortgage Lending at CrossCountry Mortgage, and I'm here to get you the perfect loan to match your perfect home. From first-time home buyers to seasoned homeowners, I've helped clients make their moves with confidence. Ready for a smooth, stress-free home buying experience? Let's get you moving today. Call me and let's turn those dreams into keys.
Hi, I'm Evan Greenberg with Langdon Title. I specialize in title insurance across New York, helping real estate attorneys, agents, and brokers close with confidence. I solve problems fast and keep your deals moving. Contact me anytime.
Ultimate Diamond is New York City's most established family-owned jeweler. With over 65 years of experience, Ultimate is renowned for its exceptional, custom-crafted diamond jewelry, its bespoke engagement ring designs, and its ability to source rare, distinguished timepieces. Ultimate has built a legacy of timeless craftsmanship and discretion, making it a trusted name among those who value refined luxury. Learn more at ultimatediamond.com.
And we are back. So we got home sales data last week, and new home sales jump 20.5% in August. That's a 1 month change. That's not a year-over-year change.
Big.
Largest monthly gain in 3 years. So that's kind of cool. Sales up a little over 15% year over year. One of the differences between new home sales and existing home sales, well, there's a difference in the way they're calculated. New home sales are based on when contracts are signed. So, we talked about rates hitting an 11-month low before creeping up after the Fed announcement. Clearly, some of this boost is attributable to that. Mm-hmm. The rates have come down, people jump in, they're signing contracts now. And the levels of inventory for new home sales have been much higher than they had supplies of 9-10 months, whereas existing home sales were next to nothing, and now it's starting to trend a little higher. But so prices are down since peaking 3 years ago by 10%. So there's been some affordability there. And developers who used to just build McMansions now are offering smaller homes and a lot more incentives. So that's the new home side of it. Existing home sales, not so good, although not the worst ever, down 0.2% last month, but slightly better than forecast. So the way they do this is the annual pace of sales. So based on the current level of activity, about 4 million existing home sales would take place this year. That's near the lows of the wake of the financial crisis. Right. And pre-COVID was 5.25 million a year. So it may seem like everybody's buying everything, but that's not really the case. Supply is up 12% year over year, and prices are starting to drop, but not on a year over year basis. On a monthly basis, they were down 0.7% in August. So there's more opportunity here on the existing side, potentially, as sales have become sluggish, to maybe get a little more give and take, so to speak. Just call Sarge up. He'll show up in his Jeep, in his Army Jeep, and he'll tell everybody what to do. But this is a time, I think, to be out there kicking the tires. What say you guys?
So again, so the numbers have jumped, like you said, new home sales.
Remember, new home sales are a fraction of the total amount of, that's a significantly lower percent of the pie. I think it's about 10%, if I remember correctly, of all the home sales.
Right. So I think those developers are probably doing what Scott always says the Fed chairman needs to do. You can't be reactionary. You sort of have to anticipate where the market is going. And I think that's what's happening now. We're going to see a lot more inventory hit as rates drop, hopefully again in the future. And those developers probably want to get their deals into contract. Now, the problem is we don't know if those deals actually close, right? Because these numbers, like you said, are based off of what's...
Well, the new home sales, we don't know when or if, right? I mean...
Exactly.
It takes, like here in Manhattan, people buy new developments sometimes years in advance.
Absolutely.
And they wait.
When they're just an idea, you haven't seen anything. No shovel has even hit the
Floor
ground.
plans, that's it.
Exactly. But again, these are national numbers. And I know we have a national audience, and
we have a global audience.
Right? Belgium, was that what you said?
No, we love every nation. We love except Philadelphia.
I was going to say Philadelphia. I don't know if they're...
This week we don't like Boston too, right?
We never liked Boston.
We don't like Boston.
We save the hate for the playoffs when it comes to Boston. And we can remind them that the Knicks took out the Celtics last year.
That's right. And they'll be off the map this year.
They'll be off the map. Well, it's funny, right? Because 3 players tore their Achilles in the playoffs, and all 3 of them wore the number 0.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So I saw a stand-up. I saw Nate Bargatze at Madison Square Garden, and his opener is from Philly. And he said he's from Philly. And
the boos start, right?
So many boos, right? But it was like maybe 20% cheers, 80% boos. And he just looks at the guy and goes, "You're both right."
Well, the people from Philly want to send us, a little note.
He had a great joke. He said, "We built a statue for Rocky Balboa, someone who's never existed before and who's a lovable loser. He was built after Rocky won. If you remember that movie, he lost. Right? He lost. And we built a statue. Who is Rocky Balboa? Where is this? He said, who is the statue of Rocky Balboa built across the street from? George Washington."
Well,
that is Philly.
Their lack of championships have them creating sports heroes. Not
that was a fantastic bit.
Look, again,
Julian Michaels, that was the name of the comic.
You want to send comments, Philadelphians or whatever you call yourselves, CTL at BHS USA. Boston, don't bother. Save your comments for when you get beaten by the Yankees this week.
Although, did you see Tatum? He's working out.
I don't know how
he's
these guys recover so quickly.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
torn Achilles, and he's out there.
Aaron Rodgers did the same thing. Like he's like, "Oh, I'm going to come back this year," and it's like, "No, you're not."
Yeah.
And then
he's a little bit younger, though. Tatum,
a little bit,
a lot younger. He's got to be at least a decade younger. But I mean, it's really impressive.
Reminds me about a survey about new home sales this month.
Please, Shar.
Who said you could change the subject back to what we're here for?
Said Aaron Rodgers. Stop. We don't need the trauma.
He looked good. He looked good yesterday, but
they won again, right?
Yeah. Well, you know what it is? They
were overseas though. It doesn't those games shouldn't count.
The Vikings are sticking around because they're playing again in Europe. But the thing is, I never said that Rodgers wouldn't do well with Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh is a well-coached, well-run team with a good defense and a culture of winning. Mm-hmm. Everything the Jets are not. But guys, you were saying something about new home sales, huh?
Tell us, Shar.
Shariar, what do you got?
Right. So when Aaron Rodgers left
maybe
New York,
you want to take over the show.
Inventory went up.
Inventory. No, well, I don't think it did much for the New Jersey, New York market, but
that is true.
I will say though, so to your point about incentives, when these developers or builders are offering these incentives, buyers can use them in a couple different ways. You can use them to cover all of your closing costs. You can use it to pay, future property taxes that you're ultimately going to have. You can use it to buy down your interest rate. So these builders and developers are getting smart in figuring out ways that they can offer buyer incentives to push inventory a lot faster. Right. And I'm curious, we used to always talk about the spring buying season. It seems like maybe that's been pushed back a little bit the last couple of years. Now, interest rates obviously play a major role in that. Normally, you would have a very active spring buying season because families wanted to make sure their kids were in the right school at the right time and all that. But I wonder, do we think there's been a little bit of a change there, and it's not as
seasonal.
It's not as seasonal and important as it once was.
We'll talk about this with the employment data too. You know, there's plenty of adjustments BLS makes to data, but seasonal being the most important. And, you know, a lot of these things like holiday hiring, right? It used to be a huge thing. You know, malls and stores would have to hire all these people for the holiday shopping season. And now they're saying this is going to be the lowest amount of hiring in like 20 years. So things do change.
Consumer spending also is still
pretty good, yeah.
So I mean, it's interesting.
Well, things change. People buy more stuff online.
Correct.
You know, I think that's certainly part of it. And yeah, the seasonality of the home market can get thrown off. But I think it's as normal as it's been, I think, since the pandemic. But this could be a big boost in the fall. You know, we'll see how much product really comes on. Because this is like the pause moment. Because you sort of have like, you know, Labor Day and you're like, okay. And then we have the Jewish holidays and then things get going.
Yeah, absolutely.
Until you get to Thanksgiving and then things, you know. So we'll know over the next 2 months, like what we're going to see. I think also, look what's happening to stocks. You know, NASDAQ is about to post its sixth straight monthly increase. You know, that's pretty amazing. And remember how it looked in March, right before the tariffs were going to take effect. Stocks were tanking a bit.
Everybody froze.
And it was after back-to-back 25% gains in the S&P 500. And guess what? It could happen again this year, which in this market in New York City means bonuses, you know, could approach $50 billion. Like they're expected to set a record. So I think there's a lot of anticipation. You have Fed rate cuts. You have mortgage rates that, you know, have come up a little bit, but are still sitting near 11-month lows. You're like, wow, we have a lot of momentum going on. Inventory is up in a lot of parts of the country. So I think this could be, you know, and I wasn't expecting a lot to change, but then again, I wasn't expecting a 911,000 downward revision to employment. So I think when you have these things happen, like everything has sort of come together. Like think about it, we're rooting for mild job growth, right? We don't want to see a blowaway number because that would mess with rates, and we don't want that. We don't want anybody to lose their job. We want everybody to have a job, but you know, we want predictability. Just like the home buyers out there want certainty. They may be waiting for the results of certain contests that they're following before they ultimately make their decision. You know, that's going to happen. It's funny because when I talk to people, they say they usually go forward anyway. It's just, they just can say, I knew everything I needed to know.
Right.
But there's no certainty in this world except a losing Jets season, right? Shariar.
They didn't lose yesterday.
They didn't because they didn't play. It's like a bye week almost. But tonight I'll go home, have dinner, and lose. I better eat quickly before I lose my appetite.
Do you stay up for these Monday night games?
No, it's early. It's like 7:15 tonight. Is it? Yeah. Right. So get the losing over, and then I can just go to sleep, and I don't have to worry.
Hate to keep coming back to this, but there was one part of this that I thought was an afterthought when we read it and when we discussed it, but it's actually really important. And we talk about how you can't rely on some of these numbers that come out because of revisions. When I hear this and I hear the word concessions, it's a big deal because in New York, you have the price that's on record of how much it's bought for or sold for. And like Scott said, though, a lot of these developers or sponsors are throwing in concessions to incentivize the buyers. So a buyer who's looking for $100,000 knock off the price, the builder is saying, no, keep the price where it is and I'll pay your closing costs. I have a deal right now where the sponsor is even paying the mansion tax for the buyer, which is, you know, close to $40,000 paying all.
And for those of you outside of New York, mansion tax is an additional tax, transfer tax that the buyer pays on sales over $1 million. Depending how high up you go, that rate varies.
Higher.
Yes,
exactly. So, you know, when I hear concessions, to me, that means prices are probably not as high as they're being reported. So all of a sudden, when you hear these studies of where home prices are going, they may look like they're going up, but if they're giving concessions on the back end, those prices aren't really where they're being reported.
Well, home builders are, many of them are publicly traded companies. They got bottom lines. They got report.
Absolutely.
You know, they got to answer to their shareholders. So, yeah, I mean, it's true, and it's a shame that they're not reported. These concessions. I always tell people, if you look at a price and it's very uneven and has cents in it, either someone's very superstitious or somebody paid transfer taxes that don't normally get paid.
That's right.
But look, things are lining up in a way that are conducive to home buying. Inventory is rising. Rates are at a reasonably low level. If I'd have told somebody, 6 months ago, oh, you're going to be able to get 6.25-ish on your rate, right? They would have been like, I'll take it now.
100%.
And are they taking it now, Scott Nadler?
Things are definitely moving.
That's good.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the psychology of the buyer has also changed as well. To your point, I think with all this data coming in, the uptick in the stock market, where rates are, the direction of rates, the Fed speak or the general consensus that rates are trending downward is, if you're in the market looking to buy a home or sell, you're paying attention to this. Yeah. Whether you're getting the right data or wrong data, it almost doesn't matter because
it's a level playing field, and that everybody has data that they don't trust.
I mean, the way the momentum goes also is all of a sudden a seller who had an open house on Sunday with no people showing up, all of a sudden you have people lined up, whether they're there for the right reasons or not, at least you're getting bites, you're getting conversations, and that always turns into something. Right. And if you're a broker, the more people you touch, the more business you can get.
Yep.
Well, that seems like a happy way to end this excellent episode of Greg Heym's Crossing the Line, directed by Lena.
Lena, you did a fantastic
groundbreaking
job.
Work for you.
We have some notes for you, which we could talk about after.
Yes.
For the most part, it was.
Well, wait for her notes for you. I got you.
I'm sure there's an email in my inbox already about all.
I think we may have to stay after the podcast and we probably deserve it. But, we're all learning.
You'll be biting your tongue by the time she's done with you.
Sharing is caring. Okay, but let's not share too much. Okay. Yeah. But again, Lena, bang up job. And you guys were okay. You were adequate. Thank you to Scott and Sedgh.
And if Ray is still listening.
Yeah, from wherever you are, Ray.
Yeah.
We love you. Don't rush back. We're fine. Don't worry. Lena's like, I got this whole thing. It's cool. But, we want to thank all the viewers and listeners and all our sponsors all around the world. And, next week's show, you're not going to want to miss it because we're going to have a jobs report. And aren't they fun? Not only for the current month, but see what they do to the prior 2 months. We'll see what FanDuel's...
Tune in to see if we still have a job also, right?
Yeah, I may be the next one replaced.
Every single week.
It's musical chairs. Lena may sit here next week. Who knows? Or we'll just put Shar in charge and we'll see how that...
Wow, a full name at the end of the show. I love it.
This is too many names. He's Scott or Lone Daddy. You got too many names. You got to work on that. But thanks again, and we hope to see you next week.